Well, hey, everybody.
Hey, what's up, girl?
Oh, Tuesday night, my kids are still getting used to school, and so they're in that really tired phase.
Oh,
And I had parent-teacher conferences tonight, so everybody is just kind of at their wits' end, and my kids are fighting going to bed because why wouldn't they be?
right. You're making me go, "Woo-hoo."
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Even with my 7 grandkids, if I was doing that, I'd be saying, Poppy's
Yeah.
gotta go. Get to bed, go to sleep.
Love the grandkids now. Take them back, parents.
The
No, they're
green-
good. I'm excited. I kind of got to meet the teachers a little bit more tonight and get a feel for how the class was going. So it was I feel like it's like the official green flag racing time of the school year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. How was your day?
Good. I'm tired today. I mean, I don't know why. I've been sad all day. I don't know.
It's sad.
Yeah, it didn't make sense, but I've been melancholy would probably be the word.
Melancholy.
Oh, that sounds so crazy. Hi, I was melancholy today.
I was gonna say that's like an old school word.
Right.
um, well, I don't like that you felt sad, but I'm glad you're here now so we can cheer you up.
Oh yeah, I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good. You know, when the lights come on, I'm ready to go. So
Oh yeah. So I was I was laughing earlier because I, right after we chatted this morning, like we hung up the phone and then 2 seconds later I was just like, I know what to do.
oh, what to talk about?
Yeah. Because I was like drawing the blank there for a second, and of course the minute we disconnect, but we were a couple weeks ago, we were talking about all the things that we've got going, and at some point you got to stop, well, talking and planning for it, and it's time to again hit green light go and figure out what you need to do to take the leap.
Taking a leap. Wow. So that's Misfits Managed for today, folks. Misfits Managed Nation.
Nation,
Um, we're gonna be talking about taking a leap today.
in all aspects,
Okay.
in all aspects, because it takes all aspects of wrapping your head around taking the leap.
Right.
And we've both, I think, been kind of working through this in our own little senses. Not
Yeah.
not even little senses, large senses, to be honest.
Well, I'm honestly excited about tonight. But just to throw a nugget out there,
Okay.
is the precursor that leads us into next week's show, um, which I'm really excited about. So,
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes into that beautifully because, you know, regardless of what sense you're talking about, next week we started a little bit a couple weeks ago
right, right.
into in talking about being in the wilderness, and like I feel like taking the leap is like, all right, here I come, like bring on the figuring it all out. And that is like kind of truly what happens when you take the leap.
Well, yeah, I think you take a leap, and once you take that leap, you are now in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So it's the action that takes place before you're in the wilderness. So next week, we're going to really, really dive
Yeah.
um, into the wilderness. That's going to be powerful. So I'm really excited. We backed up one more week, just so you guys know, because we're actually going to talk about it tonight. But I want to do more digging. I want to do more advertising because I want a really interactive show
Yeah.
next week. So um, I'm just really hoping people will tune in and comment, like, share, and just be with us. So it's going to be powerful.
Well, we want to know why what everybody else's experiences and journeys are with being in the wilderness, because that is truly a place that it gets lonely and isolating after you take said leap, right?
Right. Right. But we're going to talk about those types of things, but we're going to also talk about how it's empowering and how
Yeah,
the jewels of the journey that you get to pick up along the way if you're looking for them.
absolutely. So let's get into this. Also, as Coach G just said, like, share, subscribe so that you know what we're doing, and follow us wherever you need to so that you know what's coming when and who we've got coming up, because we got some interesting little nuggets throughout the week, and we would love everybody's input and comments and etc.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of that, last week we had Andrea Luzon.
Yes.
And just to recap that show, that was, man, she definitely dropped some jewels of the journey for us, and really exciting about how she shared her story and how she got
Yeah.
started in the energy healing field. I don't know exactly what you call all of that, but I was excited to hear all of that and hear her journey. It was powerful.
Yeah, and I mean, we both know her outside of that and just being a guest, but um I thought it was interesting that she kind of was talking about the ending part of what she was talking about is really kind of where we're going with this, because she just said, "I'm done. It's time. I'm gonna take a leap." And at the very end, she was kind of getting into it, and you mentioned this regarding me, but it was like she was talking about how she came out of the other side of her class that she invested in, and she was terrified.
Right.
And she goes, I did all of this learning and growing, and I had this fantastic experience, and then I come out of it like a whole new person, and then all of a sudden I have to just go. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do? And I think that that is the scariest part of taking the dang leap. And I'm thinking, that is whether it be starting a whatever spiritual journey, whether it's starting a business, whether it's starting a new relationship, whether it's starting, heck, anything new.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful. And it just shows, I guess, how linked our minds are
Yeah.
here. So I guess to start this off, I wanted to talk about overcoming fear and uncertainty. So
Ooh.
if you're going to talk about taking a leap, if I was going to say, what is it that prevents or stops you from taking a leap? It's got to be overcoming fear and uncertainty,
Fear of the unknown.
fear of the unknown. So,
Fear of
Talk
the
about
unknown.
fear of the unknown. And Lauren, I know you've got children and everything, because as y'all were talking, 'cause I was actually having this conversation early today, I was thinking about taking leaps and how sometimes it is good to have allies. Because I think I mentioned to y'all on a show recently that last week, actually last Tuesday, was my uh, youngest nephew's birthday, and actually his brother will be celebrating his birthday on tomorrow. And one of the things that I remember that they still do to this day is that because my brother still has pictures of it, is that Langston Julius was the oldest, so Julius went to first grade first and everything. So he kind of like set the pattern for what first grade was going to be like. So then there was a picture of a year later when Langston went, and basically Julius showed him the ropes into the first grade, and then he's been showing him the ropes whether they've been going to junior high, now they're going to high school. So it's kind of like that notion of having an ally or somebody, whether it's a family member like two brothers in the case of my nephews or everything, or whether it's somebody like fellow coaches like you and coach, and how is it
Yeah.
important when you're making that leap to have somebody that can show you the ropes? Because I think I still got that picture somewhere on my phone. If I don't, I know mom does, but it was just a picture of kind of like Julia showing Langston, well, this is where the classroom, this is where this is, this is where that is, and this is where
Yeah.
this is the teacher you want. You don't want to go to that teacher. That teacher is not that great and all that hip and everything. So just kind of like showing them the ropes in that school environment, because we do know that right now kids, and you mentioned that, are starting to go back to school. But you can also say the same thing about adults in the business world if they know somebody that's already
Yeah.
working in that company or something along those lines. So I just wondered, when we think about taking leaps, how is important is it to build allyship?
Well, I think you build the allies before you take the leap because then you've got the support system. And I mean, that's, you know, otherwise termed networking.
Right,
And I mean, that's, it's a little bit of Coach G and I is, both taking the leaps on our separate terms and obviously also a little bit together. But um, I know he and I have both been working on building up our support networks and having those allies that you can lean on, reach out to, or, the mentorship that you can go to when things get rough and tough because they do.
right,
G, what would you say?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'd say it's scary enough to face your fears, number one,
Oh, yeah.
and to face uncertainty, number two. But then to do that alone
right,
just adds a whole nother layer
Yeah.
of that. So yeah, allies are important. But I mean, I understand that as a misfit, you already most likely are alone anyway.
right,
Yeah.
You're already standing alone, just the fact that you're a misfit. So
Yeah.
the chance that Lauren and I are blessed that you got two misfits that linked up together and have like mind and move in the same
Yeah.
direction. That doesn't always happen.
yeah.
That
No.
always,
That makes a lot of sense. One of the other shows that we do on the network, they'll actually tape today, but they'll air later, and everything is a show that called Relationship Soup. Lisa uses out of Indiana and everything. But she had a gentleman on today that was a liquor company designer. So he owns an African American liquor company and everything along those lines. And I think he's based in Indiana. But he was talking about how, and this comes back to our misfit conversations. There was a time that nerds or misfits weren't all that popular, but as according to this owner, or I think he's part of the sales and marketing team, he feels that nerds and misfits have become more of the hip thing, for lack of a better term, and all along those lines. I didn't know if y'all had any thoughts about that, because when he said that, as I was listening to the show get ready to air it on tomorrow and everything, I said to myself, that sounds like something that Lauren and Coach G would say and everything. So I was actually thinking of y'all as I was hearing his quote and everything. But what do y'all think? Because I remember even back in the day, that notion of the nerd was not as seen, or misfit was not seen as all that hip. I do remember the movie Animal House, where the nerds were kind of like downplayed and all along those lines. But now it seems like it has become hip to be a Bill Gates type and everything along those lines. But just wondering y'all take on that.
I'd say thank you to the big name misfits that have started that trend and made it made other people start to see that it's okay to be that because they're just like, yeah, this is me. But the great thing I love about that though is that they, like we were talking about, having fear and not letting fear stop you to take the leap, and they get a lot of criticism for doing it anyway, like we talk about so
right.
much. And I think it's so cool that they have said, no, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to do it anyway. And you start things from your garage or wherever, or a hallway at the top of the stairs or a closet at the top of the stairs, because you know it is what it is, and you say, I'm going to do this anyway, regardless if I have no idea what I'm talking about, regardless if I do it messy and horribly the first time. They're I gotta find this meme because I absolutely love it, and it's talking about no matter what you start, there's gonna be fear, but you don't get good at anything until you do it a lot of times.
Right. And I mean, I have to pay homage too to our pioneers, that have gone before us, because that's what they are. They're pioneers. And when I think about Misfits too, in that same vein, I think about my name,
Yeah,
Gary, which means barrier breaker,
yeah,
one that goes where no one else will go. So I was destined to enter space like that where no one else would go. So I'm still thankful to the pioneers that have gone before us, and even this space on podcasts and different things. But
yeah,
we're starting in our closet, in our living room couch. Um,
yep,
but it's a beginning. It's a start. It's a first step. So
yeah.
um, it bodes into the question that I was talking about when we're talking about overcoming fear and uncertainty. What are some of the other common fears that hold people back from taking significant risks? Would you say fear of failure,
I
Well,
think
that
financial
was,
insecurity, leaving a familiar environment? Like, those are three that really come to mind for me, and we can talk into those individually. Or what's your thoughts?
I would say all of those, as well as um, fear of criticism, as well as um, phrasing it a little bit differently. But when somebody said this to me years ago, it made me stop and think. So, my automatically thing was no, but then I was like, well, is fear of success, because there are lots of people who um, grow up thinking that successful people are horrible and they're mean, and having success won't do anything good for you, and it is only going to lead to being miserable. And so you have this fear of what's going to happen when you're successful. Are you going to accidentally leave someone behind? And absolutely, just like Shannon is saying in the comments, fear of
Yeah,
making mistakes.
yeah.
Oh man, that used to be one of mine. Absolutely. I didn't want to make a mistake.
can I add one to that? Because I kind of alluded to it when you had your guests yesterday and everything. Because I was bearing the soul, as I sometimes do on this show and some of the other shows that I'm part of, as well as everything. But I think one of the biggest fears that a lot of times people have a hard time dealing with it, and sometimes it can be because of the things that you put in your own mind, or maybe you've gotten
Yeah,
certain things that have been implanted in your mind by everything from family to your friend circle to a number of things in that area. But I would add to the fear of making mistakes the fear of rejection, because whether it's romance or whether it's jobs or whether it's going to a number of things, I think a lot of people, I know I mentioned it to your guest last week, that I have not stepped into job opportunities because of a fear of being rejected. I hadn't even had the chance to get the lady love of my life or the job of my life before I had already talked that in non-existence into place and everything. Because I think sometimes we talk ourselves out of what can be a blessing. And I know that the church, because I know Gary, you've got some connection to the church, as do you, Lauren. I know that the church talks about not foregoing the blessings that we might receive, and I think it's how it's put in the church and everything along those lines. But a lot of times we are so busy overanalyzing that we are missing the blessings that are being offered to us, whether that's in romance, family, jobs, or a number of other things. But I don't know if y'all have any thoughts on that.
Well, I feel like this, you wrap it all together, this fear of failure, this fear of rejection, this fear of people's thoughts or opinions, all the things that we kind of said. Isn't that an oxymoron for a misfit?
uh huh.
I mean, we are already, based on societal norms, failures. We're
Well, so
already we've already stepped outside the norm and in doing things that are not logical. In most people's eyes, they think we're crazy, and none of what we say or do or even think makes any sense. So really in true Misfits form fashion, why do we even care? I mean that as we're talking about this, I'm just like this
Because
fear of failure. I mean, this fear of people's thoughts and opinions. Why do we stepped away from that to become a misfit? Number one, and
Yep.
we put ourselves right back in the box
but
by
I've
worrying
got a
about what
question.
people are saying.
But in that same line, and coming toward Lauren, who is a parent, and you mentioned being a parent and a grandparent and everything, what is the one thing that we all crave when we are kids, and we are oftentimes craving it even as we are going into adulthood? It comes down to a very simple word. It's not that big of a word. I think maybe it's got two or three symbols on there, like ways of phrasing the word and everything. But aren't we all in one form or fashion, whether it's in love, whether it's in jobs, or even as kids? Searching for the word approval. So I think that that's what exactly gets us in trouble a lot of times, is that we're trying to figure out ways to be approved, whatever that approval is, and all along those lines. I mean, if we look at even this world that we're in, the world of podcasting, which is a form of media and everything, we're oftentimes looking for ratings, which is just another form of approval, and all along those lines. So I just wonder if maybe that's what we're too busy searching for, is approval. Because I think both of your kids, Lauren, are fairly young, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure that they're always looking for approval from you and from your husband.
That is true. And, you know, my, let's come right out and say it. My love language is words of affirmation because I I want approval from people. I want to know that what I'm doing means something to them. I want to know that they think I'm doing good. And good gosh, that has been hard to not let define me. And it has taken, and it continues to take on a daily basis, a lot of, well, honestly, it's not about me thing. And Shannon's exactly right. Sometimes we have to be pushed out of that can't talk. Good gosh. We got to be pushed out of the box because what we've learned from the noise we grew up with. 100%. Because all of the noise is why we want whatever we want, and it's why we're afraid to do and be who we are and do us and be us.
But coach, and I'm gonna throw this back to you and everything, because I am, as I've said on this show, and I'm definitely nobody that knows this show doesn't know this. I am an MC and a event MC. I think I've told that to you, Lauren, and everything. And I've done a number of things, and I can tell you that no matter how many times I've done it, I've done festivals, I've done the Road to the Apollo, I've done a number of other things, and I can guarantee you that after every show, even though I know that I'm good at what I do and everything, I will probably go and ask one of my friends or associates, did I do a good job, or did I do, or was it a success, or along those lines, as searching for that approval. And I think a lot of people do that no matter what they're doing. I would not be surprised. I don't know the man personally. If Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise, after they do a great scene, don't go and ask, or even Denzel Washington, was that what you were looking for? Meaning asking the director or something like that, even though they might have knocked it totally out of the ballpark in their own mind, but they got to get that final sense of approval, and all along those lines, coming back to that word approval in that sense. But you're a coach. So what is your take on that? Because I'm sure there are basketball players that are like the Michael Jordans of the world and on your team, or they've got that kind of skill set, and they might average, I don't know what it is in high school. Let's say they average 15 to 20 points a game. They might throw up 20, 25 points, and they're still going to come to you and say, was that good enough? And all along those lines, even though they might have helped their team to a massive victory.
No, as a coach, as a player, as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, as a man of God, really in every hat or capacity I've ever walked under, I've had that uncertainty and needed that approval. I mean, as a son with my father, I sought that my entire life. But I want us to get to a point, because we could talk all night about the fears and why we're afraid.
Yeah.
But I think at some point we have to evolve
Mm-hmm.
and get to a point that, just again, by definition, of being a misfit. We have to evolve into a space, which we're going to talk a lot on next week, into the wilderness. But we have to evolve into a space where we know we're not going to get that approval, and that the approval comes from within, that
Yep.
we approve of ourselves and our own thoughts, our own actions. But I think you can't get to a place where all of that is noise until you've reached a place of self where you're centered in yourself, you have a belief in yourself. And that to me comes from a higher power. I'm a man of God, man of faith. So I believe once I know who I am in Him, then I can learn who I am in myself, and that the rest, if I have His approval, because at the end of the day, He is the one who gave me the gift, the ability, the talent, the knowledge, the resources. So what difference does it make what anybody else has to say or think? If God be for me, who can stand against me? So you're not, that's the posture in this whole point. I mean, overcoming fear and uncertainty that we've got to get to. Because, we literally could talk all night about why we don't do it,
Right.
but the conversation has to pivot. When are we going to start talking about what do we do to overcome those things?
Isn't a lot of that have to do with self worth and being worthy of yourself and all along those lines? Because as you were saying that, I was thinking of a legendary figure, and I'll mention his name, and you will know him. I know you will, Coach. Yeah, I don't know if Lauren will, but there was a famous Black historian named John Hope Franklin. He was from Durham, North Carolina, and everything, and he wrote a number of books about the civil rights history, like the whole history, and all along those lines. Taught at Duke University, but he was a definite misfit because one of the loves that he had, and that I think his wife probably was going like, I don't know why he's out there doing what he's doing, but he was a big supporter and had this amazing, I never had the pleasure of seeing it, but I have friends that saw it, orchards. So he grew these beautiful orchards and all along those lines. And people were probably, even among his students, were going like, that's not something that I would think of for an intellect, that this man would want to have this love of flowers. But what I have been told by associates of mine is that it had been one of the most beautiful collections you've ever seen, and all along those lines. But that was his way of, one, having self worth, but also getting to a place of inner peace and his way of communicating with God. You were talking about God earlier. I'm sure that when he was out there planting those beautiful flowers, that was his time to be in that moment with God.
That's beautiful. Man, look at Jenny's comment there.
We have a fear of failure because of the expectations we put on ourselves in order to please others or get their approval. She is a people pleaser too. I'm glad that resonates with you, Jenny. Yeah. Um, Fear of failure because we don't we want them to be happy with us. We want them to give us that approval. And I gotta say, I this was on my heart a minute ago. I put it in the chat because I have had to I've really had to ground myself on this. And that is what ultimately I think got me to say I'm doing this is no weapon formed against me shall prosper. That is where you can ultimately have the faith and the power to take this leap that we're talking about, because things will come against you, and the deeper you get into the wilderness, the deeper you get into that leap, there will be things that come against you. Your own mind will attempt to come against you. People you once loved and trusted will seem to come against you. And there will be challenges, there will be who knows what, so many things. And you have to keep yourself focused on what the big guy upstairs has for you to do and say, you know what? I'm gonna weather the storm because again, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I gotta say, and then I see you chewing over there, G.
Oh, because that's my family credo. So I'm eating that. Yeah, I'm just letting you finish so I could jump all over that one.
So I gotta say, because I was living this out at work one day when we were having like a we were just having personnel issues and people were just not getting along, and someone was bringing the fire at me, and I was just sitting there. I was like, I don't have time to deal with this. And
Right.
so I had that in my head thinking, you know what, I'm going to do what I need to do. I am going to get my work done. I'm going to do it good, and I'm going to do whatever I can do to help support my team, and this will take care of itself. And that it did. It would not prosper.
Mm. Well, what you're talking about, the scripture,
Yeah.
Isaiah 54:17.
Yep.
So, in that, to break that down a little bit more, God is not saying that the weapons of warfare or distraction or detour, whatever you want to call it, won't be formed against you, and that they won't even be shot at you. But it's walking in an assurance that they will not work.
Right.
They will not work. What a spirit of empowerment that you
Yep.
give to a misfit when they walk in a space like that, which I mean almost kind of takes me, we can stay on this one a little bit longer, but it takes me into my second point that I wanted to talk about, the
Okay.
importance of a growth mindset.
Yes.
This is now the evolution of the misfit
Yep.
from beginner to moving towards Yoda. That the scripture talks about peace that passes all understanding. That you see, back to your point, you see the weapons of warfare, you see the
Yep.
darts that are coming at you, but you're just chill because you have this assurance. It's almost like you have this invisible shield all
Yeah.
around you, knowing that they're not going to work. They're going to come.
Oh, they'll come hard.
They're going to come. And the more successful, especially a misfit, someone who has stepped outside the norm, who has dared to step outside the norm and then go against societal norms,
Yeah.
that person is scrutinized even under success. Because now
Oh yeah.
people can't wait to tear them down and watch them fail. I told you it wasn't gonna work. I knew he
Uh-huh.
was. I knew she shouldn't have done that.
Oh yeah.
But that's walking in a great assurance because it starts all up here in our mind. That's where we have to adopt this growth mindset. Oh, now you chewing.
No, I as you're saying this, I have this picture of Neo walking through like
Yes.
bullets.
Yes. Yes. I say that all the time. I say that all the time. Remember when he backed up? He was
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like walking through everything, you know, the wind's going, he walks up to the bullet, he's just like, huh.
right.
But Coach and Lauren, that growth mindset is a great mindset to have, but I know sometimes people can have a, not to put it on a damper, the
Yeah.
Phoenix attitude. I have a great friend that is a artist and everything, and we've actually worked on some projects together, but he has always complained to me about what other people are not doing in terms of accepting him as an artist and maybe even accepting his greatness and everything. And I'm not saying that he may not have some legitimate points because there can be some haters out there, but you can get caught up in worrying about what the haters are doing, and that can actually put you in a stagnant mindset because versus going for the thing, you're too busy worrying about what somebody else's opinion of you is, and that can actually halt the mindset. So I don't know if y'all have any thoughts or maybe even advice for people that get caught up in that, worrying about what the Joneses are thinking about them. I know sometimes people worry about what the Joneses are doing or how the Joneses are keeping up, but sometimes they also worry about what the Joneses' opinion of them is as well.
Are you?
All I gotta say is the Jones are exhausted. I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna channel my inner Taylor Swift and say, haters gonna hate, shake it off.
Exactly.
Well, I would see that's crazy, but I want to. Man, that's funny. You're taking me off my point. I can't even think now. But the growth mindset. So I want us to get to a point, and this kind of goes to Mark's point, goes to your point, even goes to Jenny's point, and probably even back to Shannon's point, where you guys were talking about your pleasers. And there's so many people in this world that are pleasers, because there were, at some point in life there was a deficiency,
Hmm.
and they feel like now they're playing catch up and they need this approval of all these different people.
Yeah.
The people don't even care at the end of the day whether they give you the approval or not. In all honesty, they don't really care anyway. So what about, let me just throw this out there, what about adopting a growth mindset that empowers us as individuals to embrace these situations as challenges and opportunities for us to learn and grow? Why can't my thought of myself be greater than the thought of those people outside?
One of my favorite things that I learned, um, it's got to be a couple of years ago now. And every time I hear it, it just kind of gets stamped into me that much more. And it is other people's opinions of you. You have no business knowing them.
Right.
They have absolutely nothing to do with you. And I'm kind of at the point now where if you don't have the guts and the nerve to say something to my face, if you would not say it to my face, then it doesn't really mean anything to me because it is a reflection of how you feel about something that's inside you.
Right.
It's real easy to sit here in front of a computer, in front of a keyboard, and type a whole bunch of mean crap. If you can't say it to my face to me,
Yeah. If the person can't step to you as an adult,
right.
I mean, gossip is such a high form of ignorance and
Oh,
lack of intelligence. It's not even funny. That's a whole nother subject and show. But if a person is not mature enough to step to you man to man or woman to woman or person to
yeah,
person to give you constructive criticism,
yeah,
then it's all noise.
yeah.
It's not always. And then to add to that point, that person that is not in the trenches with you as you're building. So us
Oh,
misfits
yeah.
that have taken this leap, and these people who aren't willing to step into that space with us, you're not worthy of my success.
Yeah, that's
So when
true.
I do get to that level, I don't want to hear you, because again, you're still noise.
But Coach G, to that same point and everything, there's a three-letter word. I've talked about other three-letter words like yes and no. I think we talked about that to your guest last week and everything. But there's another three-letter word that I sometimes think
No is
people,
two letters.
the mindset should be caught up in as well and everything, which is that notion of ego. Because sometimes the ego
Right.
can damage our growth mindset. So I was wondering your thoughts about that, because I know that sometimes we can have such a strong ego that we're not willing to see the messages that we are receiving because we're so busy being a little bit egotistic, or maybe even a little narcissistic and everything. So ego can be a damaging word to the growth mindset as well. So I was wondering your take on that, because I've seen some people that are tremendous talent, but they have let their ego hurt them in that growth mindset.
Well, I think the ego is important. I think the ego can grow to a place if you're confident in yourself. I think
Right,
the ego is damaging when you become arrogant, when
right,
you
that's
think
right.
you're better to some than someone else. I don't think there's anything wrong with you believing in yourself and thinking that in that space that you're the best in that space. I don't think anything's wrong with that. You can be confident in self and still not attack someone else. A perfect example of that is Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. Coach Prime is not attacking anybody else's belief system or their thoughts or
Right.
their ideas. He is just ultra confident
Mm-hmm.
in himself. And if you say something against what he's doing or thinking, it's just noise.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, I
I
agree
think
with
it's
you on
so
that and everything.
powerful.
Yeah, I think Lauren's got to go and everything. I was going to tease you, so I'll tease you now and everything. Because when you all first started the show, you mentioned, so I've got a challenge for you, Coach G, and everything, because you mentioned that you were in a melancholy mood and all along those lines. So, as a challenge, and since we're talking about growth mindset and being confident that we can handle any new challenge, I think that we should have, Lauren, a spelling bee. And Coach G has to spell the word melancholy and everything. Since he used the word, I think he needs to spell the word as well, because he used melancholy. And I'm going like, I wonder if he can spell it in a spelling bee and all along those lines. So we can have the Misfits manage to spell it bee.
Um,
Melancholy.
You got it.
Melancholy.
Sounds great.
I mean, I typed it out and I have absolutely no idea if that's right or not, but that's what I'm
Yeah,
going with.
I was about to type it to myself because you know the spell check.
But okay, so I had this a minute ago when you guys were talking about ego, and then my mind wandered for a second. But I'm thinking about, as far as ego, growth mindset, and taking the leap.
Right.
There is nothing that will, I feel like, make you fail faster taking the leap and in the wilderness than having to put your ego out there. And the wilderness will put you in check super fast.
Right.
So you have to be able to check your ego and say, okay, this is real. Now I got to figure out how to make it. And you're gonna get it handed back to you real quick.
Well, you can't have courage or bravery
No,
without fear. I
no,
mean, you have to take the leap, and that's how you cultivate bravery and
yeah,
courage. That's how you grow that growth mindset. You take incremental goals,
yeah,
where you don't need feedback, just small steps.
yeah,
You celebrate the small victories
yeah,
along the way. You pick up the jewels of the journey
yeah,
because you're pausing and being patient and paying attention and being intentional to see the things that are coming your way.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and knowing that you're gonna have to course correct a lot,
Yeah, there's
because
nothing wrong with that.
no, and you try those little things. You take the opportunities and you do all that. And honestly, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me was um getting my ego handed to me a couple of times, because then I'm like, it's always humbling, and it's exciting to be able to celebrate the wins and know that you're good at what you do, but being like, no, there's a lot of room for improvement. I'm not done here. And then you have a bad day and a bad experience with something, and you're like, it's that, okay, little check your ego at the door kind of minute, and you get back on track and you realign with that growth mindset that you have to have in the wilderness. And you just have to know that taking the leap and be ready for that to come.
Isn't one of those course corrections knowing your limitations? Because I was actually thinking as you were talking, Coach G and Lauren, about the Olympics, and we had a track athlete that had a goal in his mind of winning both of his races, and then he got a certain ailment that happened to him during the race, so he was smart enough to know his own body to know that he needed to pull out, that being no allowance, because he came down with COVID during the Olympics and all along those lines. So he had to recognize that he was not in tip-top shape and to make the decision to pull out of that race. I'm sure that that was a hard decision for him because he's a very competitive individual and he likes to win every race that he goes into and everything. But he also knew that he would be putting both himself in jeopardy as well as those of his fellow competitors and everything along those lines. And I don't know the man personally, but that seems to be that as one that knows athletes, that would be a hard decision. So, what's your take on that, Coach G? Because I think one of the things that sometimes we don't know is knowing our own limitations, and then we get caught up in trying to push past those limitations. And I'm not saying you can't push past them, but sometimes they are beyond the ability to push past.
Well, that to me that falls back on what I was talking about earlier in setting incremental goals.
Right,
So, I mean, on a large scale where you could fail, maybe you don't go out there and set or even say
right,
um, things like that. I was worried with Noah. I mean, I love him, but I was worried when he declared that because I'm like, man, you just set yourself up for massive failure. Had he achieved that, I
right.
mean, he would have been like a god. But um, I still, even with all that being said, I feel like as a misfit, you got to pivot because he's one of the ultimate misfits.
Yeah,
You still got to pivot. What he did, I think, got a bronze in the 100 meters, if I
yeah,
remember right. I mean, he's the third fastest man now, well, I think according to times, but he won a bronze medal in the Olympics
yeah.
with COVID.
With COVID.
Yeah,
With COVID, how many people in the world I can't even say that. If I'm the silver and the gold medalist, I'm celebrating, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, dang, dude came in third and he
with
had
COVID.
COVID and he's laid out on the floor,
Yes.
can't even breathe for like an hour after the race. And we're just talking about 100 meters.
Yeah.
Just to show, I mean, he didn't run a marathon, he ran 100 meters. So to show you how exhausted he was, but still came in third. I mean, that's where you got to go back and celebrate small victories. That was the other part what I was talking about, celebrating small victories. So yes, I didn't achieve the ultimate goal of winning, in his case, the gold medal in the 100 meters, but um, I mean, a bronze in the Olympics with COVID.
That
How
ain't
can
bad.
that, how can that not be a win?
Yeah.
Well, and so going more on the Olympian conversation, I think Olympians are such a great example of limits, when to test them and when to push them, because I would bet that there's not one gymnast, not one Olympian
Yeah.
that got told you can't do that. You'll never qualify or anything like that. And I'm thinking of the last Olympics, um, Rio, I think,
Yeah.
and I, Miss Simone Biles was on a
Oh, come
global stage and
right on, Shannon.
drops out
Right.
because she knows her limits, and it was not even a physical limit, it was a mental limit, and she said, I have to take care of myself here before I can perform for myself, my body, and my team here. And good God, look at the criticism she got for doing that. And it was criticism, she got some praise for it, but it was,
It was
girl,
nasty.
you just let your fans down. You just let the United States down and all this stuff. And look at that girl today. She
But
came back. She got herself in check. She reestablished those limits. And then she pushed back. And now she's like, there's like 3 or 4 moves or something named after her. And she's sitting there saying, it ain't my ego saying I'm the best gymnast in the world. It's on paper right here
The
of,
most decorated gymnast in
but
world history.
Well,
yes,
but she set a standard because her the lady that is going through this battle. Speaking of bronzes for bronze, because she had the bronze and the bronze was taken from her. But she recently did what Simone did. She saw all this social media hassles and everything, so she took some time off. She literally said, "I am getting off of social media. I'm taking
yeah,
some mental health," and that is what Jordan Childs did. And I'm sure she did it because she is mentored to some degree by Simone Biles, and Simone Biles
yeah,
probably had that conversation with her, coming back to our early conversation about having mentors in your life. And it's like, if this is becoming too much for you, sometimes you got to step away. And that's what she has done since the Olympics. She has stepped away and she said she's going to do this for a while. So that's the young lady that, like I said, was in third, then she went into fifth, then she was back, no, in fifth, then third, and now she's
yeah,
battling for this
Well,
medal of hers.
let's talk about, these are powerful stories
yeah.
that we can watch on TV, but let's real talk.
Okay.
Misfits manage. This is real talk, and let's get personal.
All right.
So, and I'm going to start us out and throw mine out there, and I want you guys to go. We talked about real life stories of overcoming fear and uncertainty and allowing the growth mindset to take over. And again, look at Simone Biles. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
had she not gone through that process and come back, now look at the legacy that she leaves. So for
Yeah.
me, it was just recently, a month or so ago, acting,
Mm-hmm.
stepping out in faith, overcoming my fear and uncertainty of what that would look like, what that would feel like to become an actor. Unknown space for me. And you talking about seeking approval, boy. But I had to get to a point where I was satisfied with me.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, that when I looked at myself or heard myself or looked at the response. I mean, because that's your acceptance or not. You're watching the response of the audience and
Yeah.
them getting you or not. Because there was a couple scenes in the play where it was me. I was out there,
Yeah.
and, spotlights on me. So I had to get strong in myself and overcome those fears and those uncertainties and do it unto the Lord, do it unto Gary. Whether people approved it or not, it was about me doing my best for me.
Yeah.
Um, but the victories that came from that, like one of my brothers, AL,
Yeah.
my yes, we talk about this story all the time. My
Yeah.
yes in a moment of fear, his yes in a moment of fear connected two men who were complete strangers, who were actually friends on Facebook and didn't even realize it.
Mm.
But connecting two strangers who are now brothers. And I'm not talking about brothers, I'm talking about a brotherly relationship like David and Jonathan in the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, that I he is my brother's keeper. I am his keeper. Um, and it's just powerful to have someone
Yeah.
that you can lean on. Men don't lean on men anymore
No.
in this day and age because now, you know, now you're, you know, I won't even say those words, but you know, you're thought of as something crazy. But um,
Yeah.
there's power in overcoming fear and uncertainty. In Simone Biles' situation, the Olympics is full of those.
Oh
That's
yeah.
my personal situation. Lauren, Mark.
So mine mine kind of took a little bit, and it was a while ago. I had been involved with a conference steering committee for um, like a year or two, maybe, and I wanted to keep going on the steering committee, and it is a phenomenal group of women. And it is this conference is geared towards women in male dominated populated industries. I'm talking construction, wastewater, engineering, um, welding, all those kinds of things. And I was on the steering committee again for this annual conference. And I remember I was like, I'm going to come and I'm going to do, I'm going to work on the content. I'm going to work on the run of show. And it was the coolest thing because I started doing, I was going to do all of these panels. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And I was at a point where I was like, you know what? I probably need to step back because I'm not going to be able to make it. The conference was out of town. I would have had to travel, which was not a problem. And I stepped back, or I emailed the founder, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna have to step back, you know, with this time." And she goes, "Okay." She goes, "If I did this, would you still come?" And she goes, "Actually, we wanted you to run the show. We wanted you to do everything." And I'm like, you know, that the thought that went through my head is, am I good enough for this? Can I do that? Like, looking behind me, like, is she talking to me? And I let myself marinate on it for a couple days, and then I was kind of like, you know what? How cool that she is asking me to do this, that I get to do this. And so I said, I would love to. That sounds fantastic. And so I took the program, the whole conference program, coordinated all of the like 3 or 4 panels, got all of those, and then I do not like traveling by myself. Was traveling there by myself, did the entire run of show, made sure everybody was timed out in their breakout rooms, right? Um, made sure everything was good. And I I was terrified, but I stepped out and I was just like, no, she's not going to ask me to do this unless she can see that, like, if she trusts me with this. And through that, I was exhausted and I didn't sleep for like 3 days. And then I came back and did a TED talk, so that was interesting. But I sat there and I was just like, no, I've got this. All these people are telling me like you're doing great, and I'm like, it was the coolest thing to come out the other side of that and be like, I just ran that conference. I just coordinated and ran that conference. And it gave me like a whole new like image of me. Like, got myself here, did the whole flying thing, which I love flying, but I have only flown by myself twice. And it was just like this almost surreal what just happened
Right.
thing.
That's good,
Mine,
girl.
yeah, mine was twofold, and I can actually put it in the notion of accepting those things that you are afraid to challenge. Kind of comes to your point, Gary, and everything. Because during the pandemic, I have known IPC. He's a haiku expert for a number of years, and I think I alluded this to y'all sometime on one of our earlier shows. But he created a group of voice actors and created this thing called the Funky Eye Puppet. So I got to play the character of Echo, and we did some clubhouse performances and things along those lines. But it came back to one of the things that IBC, which is his stage name, but what he goes by and everything. I'm trying to think of his real name because he's an Asian American that's there in LA, with this notion of what I mentioned to your guests last week of childlike wonder, because he felt that a lot of times we as adults uh, kind of have this fear of accepting our childlike wonder and those things that we remember as children. So, to play basically a cartoon character and to do some of the improv games, because we'd have us do some of those improv type games as part of the training, and all along
Yeah.
those lines, I had to get past my fear of sounding stupid and all along those lines. So definitely doing that and enjoying it after I got past that and everything. And in a like-minded situation, I recently have been doing um, sometimes there can be great mentors that you see and you really admire. So we had a gentleman that was doing the history talks for Hayti that passed away a few years back and everything, but he was a master because he lived that life and he lived in that neighborhood, which is our Black Wall Street area, or one of the Black Wall Street areas in Durham, North Carolina. But over the last couple of years, there have been some theatrical talks, meaning more of a theatrical historical presentation, that it's a whistle stop tour, but they needed somebody that could do more of a straight lecture type with a little bit of storytelling involved. So they pretty much have made me the de facto historian. So I've done some of these history lectures, kind of coming to your point, Lauren, and everything, that they've been for diplomats from around the world, and they've been for
Yeah.
other folks. And I could have that fear of failure, or I could go in there. And I even did one with Pierce Freelon, who is a local but national and I think even international known hip hop artist. I know his mother is a Grammy nominated jazz artist and everything, but his dad actually created the Black Museum in DC and everything, or was one of the major creators until he passed away of Lou Gehrig's disease. But I could have those fears, or I could actually just go and tackle them. And the one parallel I was going to make by coming back to the Olympics is, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to mention one other Olympian. Sometimes we can think that our environment can stop us from being successful, but I think that actually there was another amazing gymnast that people like, probably partially because he has a cool name or a cool nickname and everything. But if I remember correctly, Freddie Flip actually came from the projects, and I forget which projects he came from and everything. But he was determined that he was going to be a gymnast, and now he is a medal winning gymnast, and all along those lines. But he is one of the male gymnasts that actually had a strong showing, and like I said, his nickname is Freddie Flip, and I believe he's from the Midwest. I want to say either Chicago or St. Louis or something like that. But he definitely, I've read a little bit about his story, but he came from like an area that you're not, well, as you know, Coach G, brothers are not exactly rushing into gymnastics and everything.
Right.
He was actually going to take that challenge and kind of conquer something that I'm sure a lot of people going like, hey, you should be playing football, you should be playing basketball, the things that we are stereotypically in. But he's like, no, I'm a gymnast, and I'm gonna show y'all.
That's so funny. That's so funny, but that's right. You're right. It's good. Wow, man, I love this tonight. But it just, as much as I enjoyed this tonight, it just really excites me about next week as we go
Yeah.
talking about Into the Wilderness, because we're going to really break that down. We're going to give you some hard points to really chew on, some really nuggets and jewels of the journey that we're just going to give you. You're not going to have to go through the darkness. Some of you may be in the darkness
Yeah.
as we're talking next week, but I want to assure you that we've got you. You're not alone. that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, that the Lord doesn't say the weapons of warfare won't be formed and not even shot against you. But what he is declaring is that they won't work. They won't work. They
Yep.
won't work. We've given you examples individually and even nationally of people that we've seen on a major stage and how they've overcome their fears and their uncertainties. They've chosen, because it's a choice,
Yep.
to accept the growth mindset to overcome those things. That really, at the end of the day, empower you. It's power the people pleasers, and I'm not attacking that because I was a people pleaser. I was
I
one of
am.
them. Right. I knew Lauren was going to, and I know Jenny will gravitate to that too.
Yeah.
But I'm not downing that, but I want to put you in a space where you're empowered, where that power that you're
For sure.
giving away to someone else who hasn't even earned it, who doesn't even deserve it. I want you to take that power back and help use that energy now to push you to levels that you never even thought imaginable for yourself. So we need you guys to tune back in next week, and really walk this walk into the wilderness with us, because we're going to maybe enter in a dark place, but we're coming out in the light.
And we want y'all to come with us. And we want your experiences and stories, because that when we tell that, it makes everybody more powerful except for the darkness. All when we talk about it, when we share it, and when we use it for strength, it makes the defeat easier, and it makes the tough times, it gives that nasty feeling less strength.
Yep. And just to make a quick correction, because I was right, he did come from not the Midwest, but another area that was known for being a little bit of a biased town, even though there might be some folks that are fans of the Celtics and all along those lines. But apparently, Freddie Richards, who is his real name and everything, better known as Freddie Flip, was born. So he's a fairly young gentleman, only 20 years old, because he just celebrated his birthday back in April in Boston, Massachusetts. And his father is a Haitian and his mother is a Dominican. So he's actually of Caribbean root. So definitely that's not the kind of root that you would expect from a gymnast and all along.
Yeah,
But
sprinter. If
huh?
anything, sprinter.
If you think a sprinter, right? Exactly. You
Yeah.
think more like a sprinter or something in that route, but he decided to go a route different than even what some of his own folks of his heritage have gone through in the past and all along those lines. But I'm looking forward to this conversation next week, and I think we'll go out with a couple of things around mental health, but also one that
Yeah.
talks about one
Mark,
day.
hang on one second.
Are
I
you
gotta
about
add a
to?
comment that couldn't get in here. You got
Yeah.
this, or you want me to, G?
Either one. I mean, I think it's powerful, so we got to say it before. This is what we got to close with.
Go for it.
Okay, so I just got a message from Jenny, and she says, "Take a leap into the wilderness in order to grow within yourself. Even though you know your limits, don't have the fear of failure or hold yourself back because you're limiting yourself. Instead, step out of that box and push yourself beyond your limits and see what you're truly capable of. And then do what I'm not great at, getting better at, but enjoy your journey."
That is true misfit managed nation. That is being a misfit. That's what got us into this space in the first place. And then now we've gotten into this space and we've forgotten our beginning.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm excited about next week. So, join us next week. Hey, you know what? Tag and share, bring a friend, call you
Bring
close
everybody.
friends, bring a buddy. Mark talked about that in the beginning. Bring someone with you next week that is near and dear to your heart that needs to hear a word of encouragement.
There you go.
Because we're going to bring some word next week.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. We're going to go out speaking of that notion of misfits, because one of these PSAs is about the notion that one day we won't need some of these folks to be recognized because of their race or their heritage. I think it's a Nike type commercial that says one day we won't need to this day, and it was actually referencing to the women's movement and all along those lines. And then I've got a mental health spot as well. But I think both of these spots kind of reflect the conversation we've been having today and all along those lines. So we'll go out with both of these, and then I'll see you fine folks. Well, I'll see Coach D on Saturday, and I'll see you next Tuesday. And yes, I know procrastination is my weakness, and I got to send you 2 of those things this week, so you'll get those.
3 now, Mark.
I think it's 2. Is it 2 or 3, Lauren? Let me know.
We'll add tonight. Tonight makes 3, right, Lauren?
I think it's 2.
2. It's 2. It's last week and this week. I think I'm right. But yeah, we'll get you both of those by tomorrow. I promise. Because I'll be there tomorrow, so I'll knock those out while I'm over there. So yeah, you'll get both of them tomorrow.
Okay.
Sounds good. On that note, we get ready to get on out of here.
One day, we won't need this day. We won't need a day to celebrate how far we've come. We won't need a day to prove we're just as fast or strong or skilled. We won't need a day to relive the comebacks, the firsts, or the titles we've won. We won't need a day to rally behind the ones fighting to change the rules. One day, we won't need this day at all, because one day, this day will be our everyday.
We are sending you signals every day.
We are sending you signals every day.
We're sending you signals every day.
We're sending you signals every day.
I'll be feeling sad, but you're too busy to notice.
We are sending you signals every day.
I'll tell you that I'm feeling afraid,
but you'll just tell me everything's okay.
I'll get real angry about something, but you'll take it personally.
We are sending you signals every day. My grades will drop,
and you'll yell at me for not trying.
I stopped caring about how I look,
and you didn't even notice.
We are sending you signals every day.
I don't see my friends anymore.
And you think it's good that I'm always home.
We are sending you signals every day.
I'll tell you I wish I could go to sleep and never wake up.
And you tell me to stop staying up so late.
We are sending you signals every day.
I need you to look.
I need you to listen. And ask me if you can help.